Welcome to this license subcommittee. Bit of housekeeping first. Phones are turned completely. So those not used to this premises, the toilets are out, left, gents on the left, ladies are further down the stairs. We're not expecting any fire drills today. If you hear the fire alarm, please treat it as a real emergency and evacuate the building via the nearest safe escape route. The nearest escape route is via the stairs to your left as you go out through the back. Via the exit door at the back of the building and walk across the inner car park to the evacuation point, which is the pavement opposite the police station. The lifts can't be used in the event of any emergency. Please do not re-enter the building until you are advised it's safe to do so by a member of staff. That out of the way, we will some standard part of the agenda. Minutes to confirm as a true record. Minutes of the meeting held on the 2nd of November. I was here, so I will propose them. Councillor Bacon. No, I realise that. Councillor Bacon the second. Are there any declarations? Really need me to sign? Declarations of interest.
Thank you, Chair. I've got two declarations of interest. Firstly, I'm a director and volunteer at a licensed premise, Sandown High. Similar sort of situation is that on record. And secondly, I serve on this council.
The only one that hasn't signed. Third alongside. Cameron. Is there any urgent business? I'm made aware of any. In which case, we will move on to the Director of Neighbourhoods. Application for a premises licence at 49 High Street, Ryde, Isle of Wight.
Thank you. An application for a premises licence was submitted on the 6th of December 2022 by Mr. Constantine Bannon. Location of the premises that the application relates to is 49 High Street, Ryde, Isle of Wight. During the 28-day consultation period associated with the application, the applicant has agreed to conditions with police and environmental health. These conditions would look to promote and uphold the 4 licensing objectives, and details can be found at Appendix 2, page 43 of the report. Mr. Bannon has, as part of his application for a premises licence, documented measures that will be undertaken should the licence be deemed granted, which will look to further promote and uphold the objectives. These can be found within the application operating schedule at Appendix 1, page 33. Should the subcommittee determine to grant the licence in whatever form, these measures will be converted into enforceable conditions and will form part of the granted licence. Following the 28-day consultation period, 3 out of 5 valid representations remain outstanding. To summarise, concerns raised state that the granting of the premises licence as per application and agreed conditions will be likely to have an adverse impact on nearby residents and businesses with regards to noise disturbance from music provided at the premises, noise nuisance from customers, and antisocial behaviour from customers of the business. Details of all concerns raised can be found at Appendix 3, pages 45 to 66 of the report. The options open today to the subcommittee following the presentation of information from all interested parties is to grant the proposed licence as requested by the applicant, grant the proposed licence as requested but with additional conditions as they deem appropriate and proportionate to promote the licensing objectives. Or the third option would be to reject the proposed application. It should also be noted by those making representations that the Licensing Act contains provisions where an interested party can apply for a review of the license at any time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have any questions for the licensing officer? But at this time, in which case, I will pass over to the applicant. Take your case, please.
I agree. We can. I would like to ask my agent to speak first, if that's okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Costa. Morning, councillors, Chairman. This application is the third of its kind on the island. The first one being a restaurant called Cucina in Yarmouth, where there were several objections, and as we know from experience that there was no issues, no problems there. We dealt with the neighbours' complaints and objections in a sensible way, and they became friends and regular customers at the time. The second project is just behind us in at Da Vinci's opposite Hurst, where there was severe reservations from the licensing officer at the time, who actually came in and discussed the proposed conditions. And when she realized what type of business it would be, she was actually quite, she welcomed it. And as history proves, it is a good upmarket restaurant with a good clientele. This is a similar scenario. The restaurant is proposed to be an upmarket restaurant with the alcohol and music as a byproduct. People will not come in there and drink, just drink. They will have maybe a glass of wine or something like that with their meals. It will actually raise the standards in that area as well. And we always run a good ship, tight ship. And we keep in mind our neighbours. We always bear in mind conditions that's laid in front of us. We adhere to that. We also liaise with our neighbours if there's any issues on a continuing basis. And overall, I can't see any issues, but if there is any conditions you'd like us to adhere to, we are prepared to accept. But the background of this is it's going to be a nice restaurant, proper Mediterranean restaurant, which will lift the area up. And I think if we're mindful of granting the license, we will cooperate with whoever objectives and the authorities as well. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Have any questions for the applicant? Open? Case, we will move on to any responsible authorities. Do we have any here today that wish to?
Morning, Chair. I'm Dan Power. I'm here on behalf of the Environmental Health Department. Ultimately, we're tasked with assessing key licence objectives, including the prevention of public nuisance. On this occasion, we have offered which have been agreed with the applicant. I think it is pertinent to consider 4 key themes here in terms of the application. They are the application itself, in that the hours offered typically sit within the deregulation of the Live Music Act. Effectively, recorded and live music is deregulated between 8 AM and 2300. So this is an extension for 2 hours in addition to that a week, plus New Year's Eve, when there would be general expectation of increase. If you look at the controls, so that's part M of the application, which is page 33 of your pack. And it discusses additional mitigation in relation to noise control. So we have consideration of double glazing, air conditioning, so providing a mechanical means of ventilation to avoid open windows and doors, thus minimising on noise escape, no live or recorded music on the outside parts, and a means of looking at dispersal. So in reality, when we consider a venue's risk assessment, we look at options including the times in which the premises are running and also sound insulation performance premises. So looking at that theme in terms of control, it complies with the local authority's statement of license, discusses having regard to noise control. Again, we look at the location. Again, I'd consider we need to look at the reasonable use of the location. We're on a high street. There would be an increased expectation of commercial noise on occasion. And then we look at the last theme, which is the tools available to the local authority in the event of a complaint. So we have the Environmental Protection Act that's available if there were complaints in relation to noise nuisance, statutory nuisance regime. And we also have the Licensing Act with regards to safeguarding key licensing objectives. So ultimately, if the license was granted, the premises would have to comply with those objectives. And if they were seen to have failed to safeguard those very objectives, there would be the opportunity to, which ultimately. So overall, we have no adverse comments in regards to the application, and that's why we've offered a condition on this.
Very much. Any questions? We do. Captain Bacon.
Could I ask, I've seen the proposed agreed condition to north, but using the map we have in the papers, could we just identify where the sensitive premises, residential premises are? So we have a clear picture, because I'm familiar with front row shops in that street, but I'm not sure elements of it.
I understand it's predominantly commercial, but residential is heavily overlooked. But what we've tried to do, add a bit more clarity here. We've offered gone back to the applicant. That includes residential. It also includes any educational establishments, places of worship, or any other premises used for purposes that are likely to be. So it's not just the residential side of it. So again, under the environmental protection, ultimately commercial premises, same rights, residential, get that too.
Councillor Bacon, I think it will probably become a bit more clearer where the nearest residential premises will be when a member of the other person speaks in a moment, because there's an apartment above the premises, if that answers your question. So that would probably be the nearest noise sensitive premise.
Okay, I was just hoping for more of a general picture. I mean, that's identified one, but are there many? Are there few? I'm just trying to get a clearer picture. I just understand where the first one is.
Apologies, a bit more clarity. So we understand that there are premises, so one above, so structurally adjoining, and we have two, both the left and right, and overlooking it.
Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Power. Just a couple of questions. On page 16, we've got the recommendation and paragraphs, following that. Sorry, leading up to that. The mitigation conditions you put forward. Have these been agreed with the applicant?
Condition in relation to noise has been agreed.
Seconded, I'm not sure if I'm allowed to ask this question. I'll ask it. Given we've just heard that the applicant has other premises on the, and I think it's the character of the applicant. Have there been issues that have been raised? The other premises, one's in my ward, but I haven't it's people, how they respond to any problem. But that's sort of, have there been issues and have there been advice, if that's appropriate? So I'm not sure. Am I allowed to? I know we're looking at this application on it.
Thank you, Councillor Jones Evans. No, in terms of context, I'll be provided by separately.
No, that's fine. I can answer. Not that we're aware of, Councillor Jones Evans. However, either way, whether there was any information, Section 182 of the guidance, as you mentioned, requires you to give appropriate weight to this application and deem this application on its own merits, not any relation to any other particular premises that may be owned or may have been run by the applicant in different areas in the past.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Just one point of clarity. Have councillors seen the updated suggested edition on page 43? Yeah, if I can pass those to colleagues, then and just one question. I'm circulating here an updated suggested condition on page 43 of the report. Have the objectors seen that at all? Oh, excellent. Okay, thank you. Mark, the question for me, Chairman, is a simple one. Is that agreed by the applicant? Thank you.
Absolutely, yeah.
So for completeness, this condition which has been proposed replaces the condition at page 43 of the report. Health. The spirit of that condition, the condition itself, is agreed by the applicant. Thank you, Chairman. Nothing further from me.
This seems to replace last paragraph.
If you could help me, one further thing. It talks about educational establishments, place of worship. Of course, we've got the St Mary's Church just there. But one of the objectors states they run a retreat there for drug and alcohol addictive conditions, that people go for a 2-week residential there. So again, it's in a high street location. It's right in the middle of the high street, but they're saying objecting to this application because of their activities there. So I'm just a bit, don't know whether that fits into to be a noise sensitive. And I think it's really need to pay due regard to actually, I mean, this is within the, correct me if I'm wrong, if no one knows, but I believe this is within the curtilage of the wide retail centre as far as planning goes. I'm just trying to get my sort of head around the different uses there and the context of where it is.
So what we try to do is just to realign the line condition with premises is in terms of that protection for a premises, whether it be residential or commercial, that affordability condition, as opposed to being potentially biased on just residential, should have the effect of both the establishment you've mentioned and the resident.
Piecing things together, any music must be fairly audible upstairs.
I have a question on that one, actually. Well, I mean, for the applicant will probably answer, but is that technically possible? You must know the building better than I do, but it strikes me that if I have the radio on downstairs, quite often you can hear it upstairs, which would suggest that the noise level would have to be very low.
So if you look at the condition, and this is why we sought guidance from the Institute of Licensing occasion, when we define audibility, sensible vocalist is the gender of the vocalist, played, that would be as opposed to distant melody. That you could, whilst there'd be a general expectation of degree of noise transference between the property, that I could pick up bass levels, lyrics, I'll be able to pick song titles and so on. So if you apply that to the condition of those who've made objections today, not the song go upstairs, the likelihood is it would be very least. It would.
Thank you.
Going to clarify the intended use of the premises is for a restaurant, so not like a discotheque or anything. I think maybe the name Crazies maybe has set some hairs running on the actual use of the premises.
Yes, so looking at the application, I get the impression this is food led and music will be ancillary to these substantial meals. The emphasis is on setting a scene, setting an atmosphere. Primary piece of entertainment. It's also worth noting that so we need to be viable for providing live music on a Friday and Saturday night. I'd imagine most places wouldn't be able to provide. But it's about having the flexibility within the application, within that license to offer that, as opposed to then having to temporary event notices and potentially sending those hours in addition to what has been described.
Sorry, just following through, reading the new condition. I note that the previous one referred to noise and then referred to types of music related noise. This condition starts music noise, regulated entertainment noise. Doesn't, as much as the previous condition, include just the general hubbub noise of a restaurant operating. Sometimes they can be quite loud premises, have simply people there enjoying themselves, no music at all. What control is there over just the general noise of a restaurant, seeing as we are talking about restricting the potential interference with a residential premises upstairs? Is there any control over that?
Apologies. We need to consider deregulation that has applied. So ultimately, any condition in relation to regulated entertainment between the hours of 8 AM and 2300 wouldn't apply anyhow.
So my question is, just in terms of environmental health control, if the restaurant is very noisy, do those who are concerned about it have any source of back to you?
Absolutely. So that
Perhaps you could explain that.
Environmental Protection Act having that statutory available. So if there is a resident has the at the council and advise that certified noise, environmental health investigate and noise nuisance that available. So that goes back to that idea of those key themes and have remedies available to the local.
Yeah, just follow on from Councillor Bacon's question. So what we can look at within this application is premises. That's obviously my contention. I think that's been covered off.
I just wanted to respond to Councillor Jones Evans' comment with regards to persons leaving the premises. Obviously, the licensable activities with regards to the regulation, entertainment and sale of alcohol, the operating hours of the premises obviously goes half an hour past those licensable activities. The idea of that is really for sort of a gradual dispersal, if you like, rather than everyone leaving the premises in one go. With regards to the applicant's responsibilities to that, they obviously do have a responsibility within the immediate vicinity of the premises to ensure that people do disperse without causing nuisance, without causing noise. So the onus will be on the applicant, should a licence be granted, to ensure that the noise nuisance perspective is minimised to an absolute low level. From an environmental protection point of view, environmental health, should there be concerns, then obviously they can be reported to environmental health, who can then look to address that via their Environmental Protection Act. The licence can also look to address it through the Licensing Act.
No, no. No more questions. Okay. We move on to the objectors. Hello, good morning. How are we today? I'm afraid I don't know your names, so no one has told me. Sorry? Thank you very much. If I can ask you when you're speaking to use the microphone in front of you, turn it on there. It just enables everyone to hear a little bit clearer. But please go ahead and outline your concerns to us.
So my concerns are that the licence is, even though we've been assured that they will be closed at 10 o'clock, that the licence is still till 11 o'clock or later. And like someone mentioned, that they have half an hour after this. I run the retreat that is 2 doors away. I help people with addictions. There's going to be vulnerable people that will be saying it's just a week that they have with us. And I have real concerns that the issue of people leaving these times in the evening, even though it's like 10 o'clock closing time, because they have the license to open later, there's nothing to stop them from doing that. And this is going to cause issues with the clients that I have in. They've got very early starts. They're there to make improvements on their lives. They're coming from a place of distress, and then to have people leaving in a destructive manner. It states at one point that they can fit 80 people in the restaurant. So 80 people leaving, and I know it said like dispersing them at like, I don't know, leaving 10 people, even if you had 10 people leaving at a time. Then got the noise, you've got the antisocial behaviour. I struggled with alcohol for 25 years. I know exactly what alcohol does to you, and I know that your limitations go down and your voice is raised and people can get angry. I know exactly how alcohol affects you because I struggled with it for 25 years. During the program that I teach now, I no longer drink. You're going to have people urinating in the doorways, and these are all my concerns, especially at that late an hour. Even at 10 o'clock, it's going to be disruptive. But having the licence that later time there and available, whether it be Friday and Saturday nights, then they're still going to be there and available. I feel that it's going to, not only with myself, with the people above with children, there's residential flats opposite, there's residential flats to the sides as well. So there's the people down at the back, through the alleyway. There's the pavement that so small. The cigarette butts are already being thrown outside on the pavement. So yeah, I think that is my concern. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, my concern is the actual location as well. I live next door to that above, and there's a small alleyway that runs down through their premises, very narrow, and also the location outside their premises. Pavement is like 3 foot. So, and the noise levels amplified. The street is very narrow at that end, from Star Street up to the High Street. It's a narrow street, and the building out amplified. And I've had it before because when it was Cookie's restaurant, she did have came out of the restaurant late. Even when they were normal volume, amplified. Location. Oh yeah, and another thing I would ask is, I had a look on your Facebook page actually, is that there's outdoor.
Excuse me, can you address?
Sorry, yeah, there's an outdoor seating area at the back. And on the plan, also I looked at one of the plans, the map that was signed shows a private garden map. So therefore, I'm thinking, is there going to be outdoor seating? It's a nuisance. Great place. Very narrow street as well at the back of me.
Clarify on the.
Yeah, so yeah, there is an internal and an external sort of area in relation to the application itself. Obviously, there's a number of comments which I'll go through in my summing up, which will hopefully clarify a few more points also. But yeah, there's an internal and an external area. Obviously, concerns are being raised in relation to the potential for nuisance. That can be dealt with under the licence and under obviously the powers that environmental health have, should that be a nuisance and should a licence be granted in whatever form for the premises. Yeah, the operating schedule, section M, does reference the playing of live and recorded music in a garden or outside seating area of the premises. Oh no, sorry. Sorry. The operating schedule by the applicant states that the playing of live or recorded music in the garden or outside seating areas of the premises is not permitted. So what they're doing is they're committing, should a license be granted, they're committing to the restriction of entertainment in that outside area altogether.
But we are confirming that there is an outside area that people will be able to drink in.
That's correct, yeah.
Thank you for coming and speaking. I just want to get some clarification from our officer, if that's okay. So where, and apologies if I've missed it in the paper, where will be the smoking area then? Obviously, I'm all very familiar with the high street, and you know it's very narrow. The pavement's very narrow, so you wouldn't want people congregating outside so much. So
Yeah,
if this is outside area.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm unaware as to the direct location of that. Simply because the smoking isn't a licensable activity, so it's not something we can consider. I mean, the applicant obviously is within their management. They might want to respond in a moment. They may have a designated area in mind, but they don't necessarily need to stipulate that as part of the license.
On further question, I mean, I know it's not for us consideration to make a decision on, but it just helps give me some context. If people have got rear gardens and in this area, or in any sort of area really, but where you've got mixed commercial and residential, so people can sit in their garden and chat and smoke if they wanted to anyway. So I'm just trying to get a balance on this.
Yeah, absolutely. You're correct. If there are any gardens or any areas that belong privately to any residents, yeah, they're within their rights to have the sort of same activities that the business may be proposing.
Thank you. Zara, I think the retreat, you said it runs week-long courses. How regularly is it operating?
Every other week. We're trying to get the retreats running every other week at the moment. So yeah, we'll be having one we're starting on Saturday, and they'll be leaving on the Friday, and then it'll be week on, week off. So, and it is an educational based program as well. Like I think you mentioned about educational places, it's an educational based program. Also, we do have therapies. So the therapies, obviously, like we have a neurofeedback therapy, hyperbaric oxygen chambers, infrared saunas, infrared light beds. They're all very calming therapies. And these do happen in the daytime. So
But that was going to be my next question. Because I understand it's residential. People
So-
are staying there.
people come and stay with us for the week. Yeah.
What's
So
is their timetable? Not
yeah.
hour by hour but through the day. But
No,
what
no.
time do they start? What time do they finish? What actually happens in the evenings?
So in the evenings, they have tasks to do, they have tasks to complete. They've got their, so they'll be downstairs till about 9 o'clock in the evening. And then they have to go up to their rooms and complete tasks afterwards. And then they'll be starting again. The education starts at 9 o'clock in the morning.
Question, for a license, if that's possible, Bachelor. It was just regarding other licensed premises in the high street. I'm aware of two, Star and the Castle. Just thinking, I'm just trying to think of the whole environment there. So we do have other licensed premises. So I'm just trying to balance out what you're saying with the location of your activity, these long-standing other activities. Trying to really understand, get a balance here.
So the start. The start is, that's why we chose where we were. So we were close to the local amenities, but far enough away from the other pubs and things.
Looking on the map here. Yeah, looking on the map here, it's you number 51, 250 and 51, are you?
51, 52, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So it's only eight premises. I'm very familiar. I'm very familiar. But when we're talking about people leaving and walking up the high street, going home, there's that sort of activity. Just trying to get a sense of what the high street's like. I lived in Ryde for many years, just further up the high street actually. So I'm very aware what happens when people come up from the seafront and walk way through town. So I'm just trying to get this understanding. So perhaps if Thatcher can give me an idea of what the activity.
That's fine. Obviously, I can't specifically tell you, the amount of footfall, the times of the day that is busy, this, that, and the other. What I can say is that there isn't a cumulative impact sort of assessment or policy within that area. There isn't one on the island. That possibly could consider the number of licensed premises in one area and whether additional licensed premises, are either warranted or would add to the potential for disturbance. The location of other licensed premises around this proposed licensed premise is something that can't be considered in relation to the granting or the refusal of the license itself. That goes with sort of businesses and types of businesses and other types of activities that are going on around the proposed licensable area. Also, we can't consider that as such when determining whether to grant or refuse this license. It may sound unfair to some people, other people have other opinions, but the location of that business, the proposed business, along with other businesses around it, it shouldn't be considered as a whole as such. It can't be under this particular application.
Can I, at the moment?
I was about to come back to you anyway.
Thank you. At the moment, we've been going a year now, and the only issues we've had is there has been drunken activity outside by one person or a couple of people that have had to be dealt with by the police. So these incidences have been few and far between. When these incidences do happen, then the clients, they obviously report it the following day. There's not a lot I can actually do about that, but that's what we've experienced in this past year. So we know we know there's never going to be, you're never going to live anywhere and have a complete peaceful time. There is going to be instances from time to time. But I know from what we've experienced now, I know that if it was to increase, then it would be as a result of the premises being licensed. Also, the last thing I wanted to say, which I forgot to say earlier, was that the premises has already been set up, as in alcohol pumps and alcohol advertised on their menus and things. It seemed like it was already a done deal, or we've actually come here and
I can assure you.
I know that, I
I
know,
can assure you
yeah,
that
no,
it is.
no,
decision
it's
has
just,
been
it
made.
just seems strange that money had been put in,
it's-
into that side of things before the license had been granted.
Yeah, it's at the applicant's risk to do that. It's not unusual in many cases because the lead time I've done a fair amount of shop fitting myself in my time, and the lead time for things like this is such that you do it when you can, when people are available to do it for you. So, but that is obviously done at the applicant's risk. No decision has been made. I can absolutely assure you of that. The decision will be made by the three people you see in front of you now. Have you got anything else for us? We will come back to you in a moment. But I think we're back to the stage of authorities to sum up. Guess I've got that wrong, Kevin. This is the one I've been working off since day one.
Is it? Something, yeah. Answer some up. Much mind, which will
Take the
take,
last-
take the
Okay, I'll take the objectives again. Have you got anything else to add? I've sort of asked that question anyway, actually, but have you got anything else to add?
No, just that if there was restrictions on the license, then I would be at peace with it, rather than the opening hours.
It is the hours.
It is the hours. It's the hours and it's the leaving after the hours, like half an hour they have to leave. The behaviour, the antisocial behaviour. I mean, I spoke to, sorry, but Constantine, and he was saying about it being only families that be going in there, but obviously at that late an hour, you're not going to have families going out to meal. If you have a hen party or a stag party, got room for 80 people, it's the noise level, it's the antisocial behaviour, and it is the late hours.
Then we'll come back to the council authorities then. I'll do it in a different forum. I'll now mark that on my.
Considering the agreed conditions from environmental health and the police, as well as part M, so on page 33 again in particular, suggests that the premises regard for the public use objective is reasonable. However, were it not the case, residents encounter use, the objectors should have the confidence in the tools available to the local authority, particularly with regards to noise, to remedy such complaints. So yeah, again, and that's seen in actions we've offered.
Elsewhere. Could I ask the applicant, done that, I believe Mr. Cameron's probably right to speak.
Thank you, Chairman. I would like to point out just quickly that the restaurant is a 40 cover, no more than 40 people. Won't allow people to sit in each other's laps, double up to 80. The issue here is, and I can see what the problem is, that the name is very misleading. And it is a marketing technique. That's why the name Crazies was chosen. But if a restaurant called Crazies was going to open up next to me, I would also object. But it is a perception. The idea of a restaurant is people won't fall out altogether late at night. They eat in stages. They come at 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, whatever time suits them, and they will leave accordingly. It's not a nightclub, it's not a pub. There's a pub further up the road called the Coffee House and Ale House. They have music which is very audible down to where we are. I'm sure you could hear them from where you are as well. And so is the gym upstairs. Next door to us, we've got Iceland. We also sell alcohol, by the way, quite cheap. Upstairs from there's a gym. The music is very audible from there as well. And I'm sure that's also audible in a wider area. We can hear a television upstairs, but that's natural transgression of music between two properties, and it will always happen. We will consider our neighbours like we always have done. And if there's any issues, we normally try and arrange a meeting and sort it out personally between us. Like we have done before, our track record is proved of that. And I just think, you know, we won't allow people that normally get so drunk they would fall out of place and urinate in the streets after a meal, especially the kind of meals we would provide. And I think, again, I think it's a misconception of what is about to happen. Due to the nature of the business and before, and everybody knows the process of starting a restaurant, you have to make a start on things. And it is a risk you take by spending the money and the time, but we make sure we do it properly. And that's the way we operate. We will not barge our ways in and muscle in and all that. We're not like that. And if anybody's welcome to go to Da Vinci's. Some of us have been there, and I can't see the problem with having a nice upmarket restaurant in that area. Cannot stifle business too much. We agree to conditions, but up to the point of stifling a business is also not right. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. I actually have a couple of questions, if I may, that maybe you could just clear up points on. The first was the rear area, how you see that operating.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah,
I can see that that's very close to the houses on the alleyway.
initially it was just for staff, to have a break and whatever, but it will be the smoking area as well. There'll be no music, no food, no drinks to be taken out there, purely just smoking and then come back in again. That is it. It'll be kept clean and tidy at all times.
Thank you for tidying that up. The other thing was that the directors have mentioned a 10 o'clock normal sort of closing time, which sort of ties in with the restaurant idea, I guess. Can you give us a bit more around how often that is going to be? I mean, you're asking for a later license on Fridays and Saturdays, but it's always going to be 10 o'clock. I'd like to be a bit more clear on that.
I will answer that. When I talked to the lady, I was trying to explain the operation, how the restaurant works. Basically, the busiest time for a restaurant, when you get the bookings, is between 6:30, 7 o'clock. And normally at the restaurant, customers sit 2 hours max. So if you have a customer coming in 8 o'clock, which is the latest booking you take, they're going to leave about 10 o'clock anyway. And that will allocate us another probably half an hour to 40 minutes to clean up the place, get ready to go home. But this is the daily basis of how the restaurant runs, and especially the way I run it. On an occasion, when we have decided to have live music, yeah, it can be a little bit late. Like probably people will stay until 11 o'clock, but no later than that. So that's what I was trying to explain to the lady how. When I said about the 10 o'clock, is trying to explain the busiest time is between 6:30 and 7:30, and then we allocate 2 hours.
Thank you. On to the licensing officer to sum up, please.
Thank you. Just a few points to mention, really. As stated, really the location of the premises or the location of the proposed license, it can't be considered in association with other businesses, other licensed premises within the vicinity. There isn't a cumulative impact policy within this area, therefore it needs to be sort of determined on its own merits rather than adding to other licensed premises or other business types within the immediate vicinity. The application must be deemed on its own merits. The effectiveness or ineffectiveness of a applicant managing businesses elsewhere on the island or in another part of the country obviously shouldn't be considered. This one should be deemed on its own merits on this application only. In relation to sort of customers' behaviour, be it staff or customers of the business, the applicant or the licence holder does have a responsibility for the behaviour of those customers within the immediate vicinity of the premises. They obviously can't seek to control the behaviour of people outside of that immediate vicinity of the premises. I mean, and there may be customers that have come from other premises that may cause noise or issues near to this premises. If the licence was granted, it may be customers of this business that potentially may cause a bit of noise. They may not, but the applicant is responsible for the behaviour of those people within the immediate vicinity, not as they move outside of that area.
So could you specify what you mean by immediate vicinity?
That's where the 182 guidance really sits itself, councillor, really. I mean, it's not for us to determine whether that's within 100 metres radius, within a 50 metres radius. The immediate vicinity would infer to me, within the immediate vicinity of that premises, as soon as they move up and down the high street, then that person has their own responsibility for their behaviour as such, rather than it falling on the business owner. So I mean, after considering all that information, it is the view of the licensing authority that the granting of the premises licence with agreed conditions isn't likely to have a significant impact on the objectives for the potential of public nuisance or prevention of crime and disorder. We take the view that the conditions agreed between the applicant, Environmental Health and Police, as well as the measures that the applicant has put within the operating schedule, which would be converted into enforceable conditions should the licence be granted. They are proportionate and appropriate when we consider the nature of the business, inclusive of the times and the activities that are being proposed. Members should determine the application in accordance with Section 35 of the Licensing Act 2003 and the Licensing Act Hearings Regulations 2005. The options open to you, after considering all the information today, is to grant the licence as requested by the applicant, grant the licence with the additional conditions and any other conditions that you may deem appropriate or proportionate to promote the objectives, or the other option to you is to reject the application itself. Just to repeat, it should be noted that any persons making representations, the Licensing Act does contain provision whereby an interested party can apply for a review of the licence at any time. So if a licence was granted in whatever form and there were concerns raised afterwards, then a review can be called by any interested party. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All happy? The licensing the subcommittee will now recess for about, I always say 10 minutes, but it's normally 15 to 20. Just to consider with our legal officer, and then we will come back to it. Yeah, 15 past. We'll call it 15 past. Just to let everyone know, we're waiting for Mr. Guard to come back. We'll be here in a minute. Are we all ready? Reconvene. And I'll hand over Mr. Guard, Service Advisor, to read out the decision.
Thank you, Chairman. In respect of a licensing subcommittee on Monday, the 30th January 2023, for an application for a premises license under Section 17 of the Licensing Act 2003 for Mr. Constantine Balan, 49 High Street, Ryde, before councillors Darrell Pitcher, the chairman, Jonathan Bacon and Julie Jones-Evans. Upon receiving the report of the licensing section, oral and/or written evidence from the applicant, responsible authorities and other persons, and having regard to the guidance issued under Section 182 of the Licensing Act 2003 and the Isle of Wight Council's Statement of Licensing Policy, the subcommittee hereby grant the licence in accordance with the application, subject to those conditions proposed by the applicant within the operating schedule, and also subject to the mandatory conditions specified in the Licensing Act 2003, but modified to such an extent as members have considered appropriate for the promotion of the 4 licensing objectives, namely by requiring the following conditions. The conditions agreed with the applicant on page 43 of the report, but subject to a change to the condition proposed by and agreed with Environmental Health to state: any music, noise and/or regulated entertainment noise shall be set to a limit which shall ensure that such noise shall not exceed a level which is barely audible at the boundary of any noise-sensitive premises. Barely audible is defined as at a level that, whilst it may be audible, heard, is so low in volume that distinct lyrics, tunes, musical instruments, and bass beat cannot be discerned at the boundary of any noise-sensitive premises. Noise-sensitive premises, including premises used of residential purposes, hospitals or similar institutions, educational establishments when in use, or places of worship during recognised times and days of worship, or any other premises used for any other purpose likely to be affected by the music noise. In adding conditions to achieve the matters proposed by the applicant in the operating schedule, the licensing authority shall ensure that a condition is included to ensure that customers will not be permitted to take containers of alcohol or soft drinks or food from the premises to any open areas, including the outside area identified within the application. Those conditions are applied as per the reasons given within the same report in order to promote the licensing objectives, and in particular the prevention of public nuisance and prevention of crime and disorder. Such conditions being in accordance with the Section 182 guidance and the Council's Statement of Licensing Policy. In reaching the above decision, the subcommittee have had regard to the Human Rights Act 1998, and in particular Article 1 of the First Protocol, Article 8 and Article 6. The subcommittee consider this decision is proportionate and appropriate for the promotion of the 4 licensing objectives under the Licensing Act 2003. There is a right to appeal to the magistrates court if anyone is dissatisfied with this decision, and any appeal must be made within 21 days of the date of notification. And Chairman, I believe that is your decision, and that means I ask you to sign and date the decision.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Guard. What I would say to you, we have listened to what everyone has said today. And I would strongly suggest to you that if there are any issues going forward, in the first instance, talk to the applicant. If that does not work, or if that doesn't feel appropriate, do take up what Mr. Power said. Environmental health is there to regulate this sort of thing. If it does become an issue, there is a way to resolve it, and I feel fairly confident. Okay, so thank you very much, everybody, for today, and thank you very much for your time.